Vengeance is one of the only AoE skills that scales radius with melee strike range, and for that reason at Series Disfavor is one of the best weapons you can use for it with its plus 10 weapon range. But that's not the only synergy here. The plus 30 quality of support gems is also huge. Pulverizer's divergent quality gives 1% more damage per quality at the cost of less attack speed. At level 20 with 50 quality, this gem gives 100% more damage, 35% AoE and 40% less attack speed. However, Vengeance doesn't really care about attack speed since it's triggered, so that's a free 100% more damage. Other notable mentions are Anomalous Melee Fizz damage, which gives some additional strike range, and Anomalous Cast on Crit, which gives 50% more damage. Now, Vengeance has a 30% chance to proc on getting hit. In order to reliably use it offensively, you'll need to be able to hit yourself with some frequency. We accomplish this with Eye of Innocence. Every time we inflict an ignite, we get hit with a bit of fire damage, like 18 after fire res. But each of those hits has a chance to proc Vengeance. With some fire damage on a high crit chance Cyclone, we can rapidly inflict ignites to consistently trigger Vengeance. And since we're using a two-handed weapon, we can have another 6-link for our Cyclone, which means we get the benefit of 2 6-link setups with only one button. As a result of constantly hitting ourselves, we're able to use cast on damage taken to automate stuff like Assassin's Mark and Blood Rage for power and frenzy charges. We also take Inexorable on the tree for endurance charges. Now since we're using Cyclone, we can use Enduring Focus on a medium cluster, but I tried it out and it kinda sucks ass. It only has a 25% chance to proc every second, so on average, that's like 4 seconds for one charge. And sometimes, even if you're channeling the whole time, which you aren't, you can get a bit unlucky and the charges fall off. Enduring Composure on a Megalomaniac would be a much better option. Additionally, we're also able to get some damage reduction from the Pantheon since we're constantly hitting ourselves. This reduced damage taken plays well with our other defensive layers, like additional reduced fizz from our body armor and endurance charges, actual armor with Molten Shell, high elemental res with some damage shifting, Fortify, and crit and ailment immunity. Although my only regret with this build was not getting spell suppression, which makes uber bosses way too sketchy. Getting spell suppress cap would have taken some effort though, since we're on the bottom of the tree and we only have 3 rare slots for suppression. Okay, so how are we scaling our damage? Since we're using Aziri's Disfavor, there are generally 2 ways you can go about it: Fizz Impale and Elemental Conversion. I went with Elemental Conversion, and with such a hard-hitting skill like Vengeance, I thought Heat Shiver was the way to go. In my current setup, Vengeance has an average single hit of like 16 mil when fully buffed. That's enough to keep uber bosses perpetually frozen for Heat Shiver. You just need to cap your crit and convert all your physical damage to cold with this mastery and your gloves. So the ascendancy I chose was Slayer because you can get access to Gladiator's Painforged via Forbidden Jewels without having to be a Gladiator. Slayer's Overwhelm also overrides Disfavor's abysmal crit chance, and Impact gives a ton of AoE. My lethal Pride is giving some fizz taken as fire and crit chance, as well as a bit of strength for Gladiator Plate, and there's a bit of double damage on it too, but that only affects Cyclone since our counterattacks are already doing double damage thanks to Painforged. On my Watcher's Eye, I'm getting some crit damage reduction, which is enough to cap it with the armor and crit mastery, and Hatred crit. The Imbalanced Guard Impossible Escape I'm using is really nice, but a much cheaper alternative would be Unwavering Stance. You miss out on 1 max res and some armor, but you get martial experience, which is not bad. So Vengeance cooldown and Ellie Pen are no-brainers for enchants, but the Glove enchant surprisingly actually does something in this build. Ire, when hit, procs off of our self hits, so we can reliably proc it ourselves. It makes a copy of your weapon that continuously hits in an area. These extra hits can ignite, which will marginally help with your Vengeance proc rate. The Eldritch implicits in this build are also super important. You need at least 60% fizz to cold on your gloves. Usually you'll get like 30 something as a veiled prefix and 30 as an Eldritch implicit. You'll need to use Orbs of Conflict to get your implicit up to 30. Now if you get a perfect 35% unveil, then you'll only need 25 as an implicit. On boots, you need some ailment avoid, just enough to get 100%. I have too much. And brittle ground will almost always get value since we're playing Cyclone. On body armor, the most important thing is +2 to all res. Again, you'll need to use Orbs of Conflict for that, The other implicit can just be increased effect for a useful aura. Either a 2120 or 2023 infused channeling is highly recommended. The extra level or quality reduces the time required to gain the infusion buff by an extra like 15%. A level 21 gem gives 1% more damage, but it also has a slightly higher int requirement. You'll need 114 int. That's 2 good int rolls on gear. You can also get some on your clusters if you need. If you need some more unreserved mana for your triggered Assassin's Mark and Molten Shell, you can take the Life Mastery that converts some mana cost to life, and if you need some reservation efficiency, the Mana Mastery on Revelry is only 3 points. By the way, we get Mana Leech from Divergent Elemental Damage with a Text Gem. Feel free to pick up Leech on the tree instead, then you could fit in Brutal Infamy on your large clusters. You need Martial Prowess for the accuracy though. If you need some extra accuracy against bosses, then you can get some Blind Chance on your Abyss Jewel.